Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the pod. We are back. We are building up to that huge North London derby, which takes place on Sunday at Emirates Stadium. Coming to you from a very cold London, but I'm told by our esteemed guest today, Mr. Phil Costa, that it's not just here in England that it is cold. And he's got the thick jumper on, so it must be a Europe-wide problem, Phil. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, it's definitely not just London that's chilly. I woke up this morning and it was 3 degrees in Barcelona. So, yeah, I think it's just that time of year. I've got this on and 2 t-shirts on underneath, so that will give you a little window into my world at the moment.
Brilliant stuff. And guys, make sure you give Phil a follow. I will make sure that all these details are included in the description of the episode. I'm sure you've heard Phil on the Arsenal Vision podcast, on the Arscast, on the Football Vision podcast, which is fantastic as well. And I really enjoy that, Phil, because I sometimes like to take myself out of the Arsenal world and listen to something that has nothing to do with our football club, because it just gives you a break, doesn't it? A bit of respite, because you can get caught in this kind of cycle of going over the same stuff over and over again and overthinking things and winding yourself up and stressing yourself out. Sometimes you need that little bit of a step away. Tell people where they can find the Football Vision podcast. I love listening to it. Let people know how they can find it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just in all the usual places, Spotify, Apple. We're doing some bits on YouTube now. Basically, it's just, general football. We'll cover Brazilian clubs, MLS clubs. We'll do stories about French clubs who have collapsed into the 4th tier. It can just be, anything that I feel like doing. And you're right, it does give me a bit of an escape because we are so entrenched in this Arsenal world sometimes, and it's good to take a little step outside. So yeah, if you need a more general football fix aside from the 20 podcasts that you get a week normally, find me on Football Vision.
Make sure you go and check it out, guys. It is a fantastic listen. Good morning to everybody who's joining us live in the chat at the moment. It's good to see so many of you with us on this Friday morning. Andy says, Gooners made to freeze in Barcelona. What a world.
It was just a chance to flex the top, really.
Yeah, I suppose there's that. I bet it's actually 20 degrees, isn't it? And you're gonna take it off. You're gonna be sweating, and you're gonna go and dive headfirst into a swimming pool or something. I don't know. Anyway, Phil, let's get into this weekend's game. Let's start with how you're feeling about it, because I'm always wary of the first game back after an international break. You don't quite know what you're going to get in terms of player fitness, player conditions. Sometimes the start can be a little bit slower in a game after a break. We've also got this thing where we just don't know who's going to be fit and who's not. And I'm sort of sitting there and I'm going, I hope X players back and I hope Y players back. But ultimately, we don't know how fit they are, if they are available to make the squad. And so that will, of course, influence decisions with regards to whether they start or not. I mean, just general feelings, first of all, on the North London derby. It's a game I'm normally very confident about, the home one. I'm a little bit wary this time, I got to say.
Yeah, I can't really say I'm ever confident about a North London derby, to be honest. We could be Premier League winners, Champions League winners, then they could be bottom of League Two, and I'd still be nervous. But generally, our home record is very good against Spurs, and in the big 6 games in general, if I can say that about Spurs. I mean, maybe they're not in there at the moment, but I do think we play well in these big games. We're well prepared. I think physically we're much more equipped now to be able to compete. So I will always back Arsenal at home, but there's always just a tinge of, oh God, what if they could do it at home? But I think it's been such a long time, since they really hurt us. There's been a few draws and a couple of cup wins along the way, but more often than not in the league, we are very strong. So ultimately, I think if the result against Sunderland did go our way, a lot of people would be more confident about this one. But there is that small little hiccup that we've had to deal with. It's been a a long international break, an exciting one. Obviously, with the Ireland results, the Scotland results, there's been all sorts of stuff happening in Curacao and Haiti. So that has helped to take our minds off things a little bit. But we did see a little chink in the armor when it came to that Sunderland game. So I think people now are just sort of anxious a little bit to get that winning run going again. And obviously, we're in the dark a bit with injuries. City are sort of breathing down our necks a little bit. So I can understand some nerves, but I'm trying to put those aside and feel a bit confident in us and who we are, because I do feel we're in very good shape still.
If I take you back to that Sunderland game, and I know we're going back a good couple of weeks now, how do you look at it now? Because I remember on the day thinking at one stage in the game, we're in real trouble here. And then when we go 2-1 up, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this could be season defining. Like the fact that we found the way here, of all places, given their form this season, given the difficult evening we've had so far, the fact that we are 2-1 up, and I've got so much confidence in this defense to see it out, that for me was us getting ready to send this massive statement. But unfortunately, we weren't able to hold on. In the immediate aftermath of that game, I was frustrated, like really frustrated. As the dust settled a little bit, I started to look at it slightly differently. And I said, look, it was a bad day at the office in a lot of ways. Defensively, we weren't our usual selves. I felt like we'd run out of steam towards the back end of the game. That led to lapses in concentration, maybe not being able to compete as sharply as we would have liked for some of those aerial duels, things that normally Arsenal are so good at. And I sort of put it down to being a one-off, and I helped myself to get over it by that. But looking back on it 2 weeks later, what's your kind of assessment of that result up at Sunderland?
More of the same, really. I think we've been so spoiled by some of the performances and results this year that we need to remember that football is a contest. Sometimes you will just have a game where the other team raised their levels. We caught Sunderland in a very, well, it was a bad moment for us, but a good moment for them, because they were flying high. They've got one of the best defenses in the league. This was the first time really they'd played anyone big at home, so everybody was up for the occasion. It was 5:30 under the lights, so people were ready. They were ready for an upset. Sunderland were ready. And I just think maybe our physical levels dropped by 5 or 10% towards the end. And that's when you see the late goal go in. So, the first half was a bit of a slog. I thought we were excellent in the second half, to be honest, the way we wrestled things back. That was some of the best football we've played all season, I think, in terms of that relentlessness of pressure, keeping Sunderland boxed in, creating chances. So, obviously, when you're winning a game in the 94th minute, you're gutted not to take all 3 points. But I was sort of happy to write it off as a one-off and just say we were knackered. We had nobody really on the bench to come on and influence the game. We tried to shore things up with Mosquera coming on. Could Arteta have done things differently? Maybe. Did we defend the goals well enough? No. But Sunderland will take points off many others this year. So I just think the best way to sort of put that result behind us is to win on Sunday. And look, there's no better chance or excuse to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I was going to criticize Mikel for anything, it would be that I felt like he could have made a couple of other changes, maybe in the middle of the park, maybe, in other areas, just to provide some fresh legs as the game went on, to kind of give us a greater chance of maybe holding the ball a little bit better and not allowing ourselves to sink deep the way we did and have to deal with that kind of Sunderland onslaught. I'm not saying there wouldn't have been any pressure. They're a good side. They were at home. They had the crowd behind them. But I just felt like maybe we could have been a bit more proactive in stopping them sort of getting on top the way they did towards the end of that game. In terms of this weekend, Phil, there's so much going on with regards to injuries. We'll try and figure out who we think could be back and who we think could be available come Sunday afternoon. But I do want to go back to the Gabriel injury for a minute, and I want to get your reaction. I was at Emirates Stadium. I was at the Brazil game. I was sitting in the corner behind the goal, basically, where Gabriel went down. So as soon as he went down, there was just a crowd of players, and I couldn't work out initially if it was Gabriel. And I'm sort of scanning the pitch, and I'm like, where's Gabriel? Where's Gabriel? Where's Gabriel? Oh shit, there's Gabriel. And I watched him sort of pick himself up and walk around the back of the goal, and I could see straight away that this was, something that was going to keep him out for a period of time. Now, when I listened to some of the reports after the game about him not being 100%, about him having to be held back in terms of some of his warm-up sessions, I grew increasingly frustrated with this entire situation. What are your feelings on the Gabriel injury? How much are we going to miss him? And is this something that could have been avoided? You know, people keep saying, "Oh, it's just bad luck," but sometimes you got to look at what you can do, right? Not just as a football club, but as a national team to protect your players. I mean, this is just so incredibly frustrating.
It's really frustrating, especially because as Arsenal fans, we feel like we've been firefighting for the best part of a year and a half. You know, it's Saka out for 3 months, it's Havertz out for the season, it's Odegaard out, it's Gabriel out, and these aren't, you know, second choice right backs that we can sort of make do with. These are key influences and key players in the team that have basically propelled us into this position, right? So it's natural to be frustrated about that, to miss them. Um, with injuries, I never know where to stand, because sometimes I think we can do more from an Arsenal sense, but then I just realize it's a league-wide issue. I think players are being run into the ground. Spurs have about 10 injuries. Chelsea have 10 injuries. You know, it's not just Arsenal. I think we've been very unlucky in terms of the personnel and the severity of who these injuries have been sort of suffered by. But in terms of numerical value, injuries are happening across the board. So I just think the schedule more than anything is killing these players. And obviously, if there was an issue beforehand with Gabriel, maybe there should have been an adult conversation to take place and say, look, I'm feeling a little bit tight in my groin. I'm not feeling 100%. Can I just sit this one out? I know it's at home at the Emirates. I want to be the guy that's playing on my own pitch for my country. There's a World Cup next summer. But they're going to play. They're going to play. How many times have you gone to five-a-side with an ankle injury? Or you've got a knee injury from the week before, and you still go, you look like an idiot, and then in 10 minutes you're limping off the pitch. You know, they're no different. So yes, obviously I would have liked maybe a conversation to have happened, but I just realized that it's not realistic. And most of the frustration comes from the issue that it wasn't on Arsenal time. It was on Brazilian time in a friendly. But if it happened against Sunderland in the second half, for example, and we knew at halftime that Gabriel had reported an issue and Arteta put him out anyway, what do we say about that? You know, so it's just there's a whole thing about this narrative on who to blame. Can we blame anyone? Is it Gabriel, Arteta, Ancelotti, the Brazilian national team? Probably a little bit from each section, but I just think players are going to fall throughout this season, and we need to make sure that as a club, which I think we have done, we are in the best possible place to prepare. But obviously, I'm gutted about losing Gabriel, because he's been a major influence for us in both boxes. He's the emotional leader of the team, defensive leader of the team. We're going to miss him. It's entirely normal to miss him, and especially over the Christmas period where we're going to play about 14 games. We're going to miss that influence. So yeah, it's just a huge blow for the team, but I am confident enough that we can cope. And look, maybe it gives a chance for some other people to step up as well.
Who do you put in at left centre back? Because there's a few options available to Mikel Arteta, which kind of speaks to the point that we've been making, that Arsenal are better prepared for this than most other teams. And I've been saying on the pod this week that yes, it's a blow, and yes, it's devastating that we're going to be without such a key player. But at the same time, you know, I think the real concern is at the other end of the pitch in terms of player availability, because here we do have options. Now, I think the two obvious choices would be either Christian Mosquera, who's come in and done a fantastic job at centre-back for Arsenal since arriving, certainly surpassed my expectations of him as a player. And then, of course, there's Piero Hincapié, who maybe feels like a more natural fit, given he's a left-sided player. What do you think Mikel will do, though? Because obviously you've got to factor in the international games that, you know, Hincapié's played. He's had to travel a long way. He's not as established within the group as Mosquera is, which is crazy to say, because one's that bit more experienced and more of the finished article, if you like, in terms of his broader career. But I don't think it is cut and dry. I don't think it's definitely Hincapié, and I don't think it's definitely Mosquera. I think this is something that's going to keep Mikel up at night, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I've really gone back and forth with this one in my head, because naturally, well, I don't know about any other people listening or you, but my mind went straight to Christian Mosquera purely because of what we've seen from him already this season. I think he's come in, done an incredible job, you know, especially deputizing for Saliba on a couple of occasions. 4 minutes in at Anfield, he's come in cold, played really well. Athletic away. You know, he's come in and answered all the questions that we've needed, especially when maybe we weren't expecting him to come in and have such an immediate impact. You know, young player coming from Valencia, needs to learn the game in England, the new language, new culture, things like that. But I feel really safe with him and comfortable. I've got no issue with him playing. But also, just there's a way that Arteta talks about Nketiah, you know, that he's a warrior. He's going to defend for the team. You'll love him. There was a press conference when he was just like, trust me, after 2 minutes, you guys are going to love him. And I think there's something in me that might be tempted to go with Nketiah, just because, like you said, Gabriel, big influence on the team, emotional leader, aggressive, tenacious. He's got that South American vibe, you know, and I think Nketiah mirrors that a little bit. But also, you made a good point earlier, that left-footed aspect to his game, natural left footer. He opens the angles for that side of the pitch, whereas I think Mosquera naturally, as a right-footed player, would come in back towards his right, opening up his body towards Saliba, Zubimendi, Saka. And I think that level of balance is something we've done a great job of rectifying this year, because how many times have we spoken about the right side being, you know, Odegaard, White, Saka, that little triangle? It's so heavy. We lean towards them all the time. But this year, I think we've done a great job of balancing out the pitch a little bit in terms of Trossard on the ball, Calafiori pushing forward, Declan Rice having more of an influence. So at this point, it's really a toss-up. I've got no idea. My instinct is still pushing me towards Mosquera. And I think he'd do a fine job at left centre-back. He played there last season for Valencia. So I don't think it's like super unnatural for him. But I've just got a little feeling if Nketiah is all right and he's fit and he's travelled well and everything, there might be a way in for him, just because of the sort of physical traits that he measures in terms of Gabriel, in terms of having that like dog in him. You know, I think he's good for a game like Sunday. So let's see. But how nice is it to be able to say that I would be fine with both? You know, it's just this is the squad that we've built, you know. So ultimately, I'm not too bothered, but I think we're going to go Mosquera.
It sounds like Ricardo Calafiori is going to be okay, because obviously he was sent back from international duty. Gattuso came out and said, look, he probably could have played, but, you know, we felt that it was unfair on him and on Arsenal to kind of really push him and use him during this international break. And I'm not saying that it will be this option, but to add to those two options, you could also, couldn't you, push Calafiori inside to left centre-back and put Miles Lewis-Skelly in the team. So
or Nketiah at left back.
Or Nketiah at left back, yeah. So there's an abundance of options, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, especially when you consider who might play on that right-hand side for Spurs, which I think will be Mohamed Kudus. I mean, he's a doubt at the moment, but I think he'll be fine and make the game. Obviously, they've got Brennan Johnson as well, who's a kind of Theo Walcott-esque player in that he doesn't really do much, but if you get him running in behind, he can score goals. So that might be an area of concern at left back, at left centre back, where Spurs will look to target. So maybe that comes into the manager's thinking, but ultimately it depends on who's fit, who's raring to go, who's ready to go. And we need to make sure that if it's a new partnership, that it's a balanced partnership. So Calafiori is, of course, an option there, but I think he'll stay at left back if possible, just because he is offering us something different in the attacking area. When we've got Havertz out, Gyökeres out, whoever else out, he's offering us a sort of wild card in that area where maybe Miles or Nketiah wouldn't. So that's why I'd be tempted to keep him at left back.
In terms of some of the others that we're hoping will be fit and available, Hand of Arsenal reported yesterday, who's been super reliable over the course of these last few months in particular, came out and said that there's a chance that Martin Odegaard returns. That was then backed up by some reports in some of the major newspapers that say that he is back in full training. What's your gut feel about whether Martin Odegaard's going to be available or not? Because I have to say, I didn't really see this coming. We heard pre the international break that some of these players could be back. And it's felt like as we've got closer to this point where they are expected to return, we've had less and less in terms of kind of warm messages around this. But Martin Odegaard could be in contention if you go by these reports. Is your gut feel that he will be?
I've got no idea. I've absolutely no idea. And I think this is the sort of culture that Arteta has fostered around Arsenal now. It's very, I'm not going to say secretive, but cards are played close to the chest always. We like a few mind games leading up to the big games. We keep people out of training. I mean, Arsenal released some training pictures this week. I think there was 30 or 35 in the gallery, and about 4 players showed up, and that was Gabriel Jesus, Eza, Declan Rice. So there's obviously some intentional selection in terms of those going out. I'm sure Stuart McFarlane will know a bit more than us, the club photographer, but I've honestly got no idea. I would have loved more than anything to have at least 2 of those 5 injured guys out, whether that's Madueke, Martinelli, Havertz, Gyökeres and Odegaard. I would have been so happy to have just 2 of them back for this game, because I think especially when you consider this week when we're playing Spurs, Bayern and Chelsea, we need our guys back for that. But in terms of Odegaard, I've got no idea. I really have no idea. The Norway coach sort of said something the other day that didn't track. He said he needed a few more weeks, but then the reports this week have said that he might be ready. Then it's about Gyökeres not being fit, even though he was supposed to have the sort of the least serious injury. Then Julian Nagelsmann's talking about Havertz needing a bit more time. So I've got no idea. I really have no idea. I'm just sort of happy to sit back and wait for the lineup announcement on Sunday. It could be none of them back. It could be 4 of them back. Honestly, nothing would surprise me. So I really hope that we have something to sort of supplement the bench a little bit, because as much as I love Ethan Nwaneri, as much as I love Max Dalman, Harriman and Noose, you know, this is a Hayland culture of the club. It's a Arsenal heritage to have these guys coming through and sort of ready for opportunities. We need more than that. So I have no idea. I really have no idea, but I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, that we can have a couple of them, if not more. So yeah, who knows? Really, who knows?
You're absolutely right about the kind of the secretive nature of the way that Arsenal go about things in terms of injury news. It's to the point where, I mean, I couldn't make the press conference today anyway, because I've got to be somewhere else this afternoon. But it's like there's a part of me that, like, when those sort of emails come through that goes, well, I've got to weigh this up, because am I actually going to hear anything that I don't expect? Am I actually going to get a story out of this? Or is it going to be Mikel Arteta doing what he always does, which is saying, we've got one more training session, and basically not letting anything slip? In terms of my gut feel, and let me be clear, I don't know this, okay? So I'm not being an ITK.
Where are the aggregators?
Yeah,
get them involved. Yeah,
here they come. My gut feel is that Martin Odegaard will be involved in some capacity. I don't think he starts the game, but I think he'll be involved in some capacity. I think that Madueke will be back again in some capacity. I think there's a chance for Martinelli as well. I think that'll probably be it. I'm almost at the point now, though, Phil, where, like, I feel like we're so sort of uncertain about what the situation looks like that I'm almost like, well, let's just focus on trying to win the game with what we've got as fans, because I know that within the walls of the football club, they'll have more idea and they'll certainly be more clued up than we are. But I'm almost like, just focus on what we have, what we know we have, and anything else is a bonus. And if a couple of returns can kind of galvanize everybody ahead of kickoff, then that's great. Let's try and use that in terms of like building that positivity and that positive energy around the football club, because I just don't think we can afford to kind of think this player's back and that player's back and then have that sort of deflation when the team news comes out and maybe none of them are back. I think you've got to sort of protect yourself against that a little bit. If we talk a little bit about this game in terms of its style and how you think it's going to pan out, I commentated on Tottenham's game against Manchester United just before the international break. And what I found with Tottenham was I found a team that are trying to do the right things, a team that are trying to build up in the right way, a team that are a little bit more direct than Ange Postecoglou's side. There's no doubt about that. That's in Thomas Frank's nature. But a side that once they arrived in the final third were out of ideas. And we've been in that position at points over the last few years. You've got to be honest, like as good as we've been in terms of results and stuff, there have been periods where you've looked at this Arsenal team and you've just thought, we're lacking that spark, we're lacking that creativity. For Tottenham, I think it's actually explainable at the moment. When you mentioned how many players they've got out at this moment in time, they didn't have Kudus that day either. There's no Kulusevski, there's no Maddison. These are some of their most creative players. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, they're sort of good in 2/3 of the pitch. And then when they get to that final third, they haven't really got too many ideas. But I also know Thomas Frank to be a very adaptable coach. And I think he will come to Emirates Stadium and sit back and try and soak up and look to hit us on the break. You'll probably see Kudus. You might even see Brennan Johnson sort of fit in there somehow because of his pace and ability to stretch people. I look at that and I think, are we being set up for one of those games where it's Arsenal possession, struggling to break down that low block, and then we're going to have to maybe find a way via a set piece or something? Is that the kind of game that you're expecting?
Yeah, I think we will have to be a bit patient on Sunday. I know Spurs fans aren't super happy with how they've been playing so far under Thomas Frank, but he's not an idiot, right? He's had 4 good years in the Premier League with Brentford. They're very capable tactically. They're switched on when it comes to set pieces. Spurs are actually very good at set pieces as well, so that's what we'll have to watch out for on Sunday. I don't think there's any great mystery in what they'll try to do. I think they'll try and put as many shin kickers in midfield as possible. Bentancur, Palhinha. I think they'll put Pape Sarr as a kind of number 10 and then stick him on Zubimendi so he can't have so much influence on the game. And then they'll try and target our left side. So that's where we're, I'm not going to say weak, but potentially vulnerable with a new left centre-back coming in, with Calafiori there. We know that he's not the quickest when he has to run back towards his own goal. So for me, it's quite obvious what they'll try and do. We don't have a huge amount of threat in behind, so I think they'll be happy to sit in a mid block or a low block and just make things very difficult for us in terms of those small combinations, those nice bits of play that we like to do in and around the area, with Timber running beyond Saka and Calafiori running along Trossard. And they're capable. They're capable of coming in and causing an upset. Do I think they're a very good team? Not at this moment, no. But they will be up for this, and I think Thomas Frank will make it difficult for us. And there's always that threat of the horseshoe of death, going side to side, centre back to left back, back to the centre backs on the ball, out to the other centre back, towards the right back. We need to avoid that as much as possible. We can't be slow and ponderous in this game. We can't let Tottenham settle. And obviously, we've known that this Arsenal side, I know Gabriel is a big miss, but we know that they can open the scoring with a set piece. So if we can use that as a way to get ahead, get into the lead, that might force them out a little bit. So I don't think it's a mystery how this game will go. I think it will be a lot of Arsenal possession. It will be a lot of us trying to break Spurs down and them trying to catch us in transition on the break with Kudus, Richarlison, whoever's out on the left, Simons. I don't know if he's going to play. But they do have players to hurt us. We need to be switched on. But I think at home, I'd like Arsenal to show a bit of initiative, a bit of speed and sort of creativity on the ball. I think Sunderland, the second half in particular, is a good blueprint for that, because Sunderland were super low in their block. They packed the central areas, but we were still making chances. And I just like us to take some shots as well from the edge of the area, whether that's Eze, Saka, Trossard. I think we've really upped our game this year in terms of being more bold and brave to shoot, whereas last year we were so shot shy. We were just relying on a 17-year-old Ethan Nwaneri to shoot most games. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, but I think in terms of the two sides, we are the better team, and at home I'll expect us to come away with a good performance and a win, although they are strong away from home. So not taking anything for granted.
What are you more nervous about, the game itself or the tifo pre-kickoff? Because
well, the bar is low. The bar is low. So if they even get close to what they coughed up against, what was it, Real Madrid or PSG? It was the PSG game, wasn't it? Oh God, that was just shocking, shockingly bad.
Do you know what the worst thing about that was, Phil? Like the day before, I was at the Emirates Stadium for the press. Well, there was press conferences and there was open training. And obviously the PSG press conference was held at Emirates Stadium because they were training on the pitch the night before. And so after the press conference, we walk out towards the pitch for the sort of the open training. And you come outside into the stadium and you look to your left towards the kind of North Bank end, and you can see all these like wires that are hanging down because they're preparing this display. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, this is going to be epic. Like, look at all
box office night at the Emirates.
Box office. Everyone's working incredibly hard on this, and then they unroll that, and you're just like, what on earth is this?
Graphic design is my passion. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I agree with you in terms of how the game's likely to go. I think we've got to be switched on. I feel like this is a really big game, and I know that sounds like a really daft thing to say because every game when you're in a title race is important. But I think in terms of just regenerating that belief again. Because I'm not saying that the belief's gone from within the camp or that the players will be feeling this, but I think last weekend, the weekend before the international break, you drop points. You then watch City go and convincingly dismantle Liverpool the way that they did, narrow that gap to 4 points. And ultimately, City will feel like if they're going to win the title, they have to beat us at the Etihad, right? If they do that, then that gap is only 1 point. So I think it's a much more precarious gap than people are sort of noticing at this moment in time. How worried are you about Manchester City? Because I'm not saying you would have said this, but if I put this to a lot of people 4 or 5 weeks ago, they probably would have said, I'm not worried about City at all. Were they wrong? Were they naive?
I think anyone that was ruling City out is naive, because they will always be there or thereabouts. Whether or not we saw them picking up this form so quickly is another thing. But when you've got someone like Erling Haaland up front who is scoring 2 goals a game and in the best form of his life, you're always capable of winning a league. And I think most of the mystery around City was that we didn't know what to expect from them. You know, they had a lot of new players come in January. They had a lot of new players come in over the summer. They lost a lot of key references in the team, like Gundogan, De Bruyne, Kyle Walker. So we didn't really know what to make of them. And that's why a lot of people maybe underestimated them a little bit. But I was never scared of them collectively. I think obviously there's new people to bed in and everything, but they're always going to be a capable team. My main concern is Erling Haaland. Now, City might feel that their over-reliance on him is a problem, because if he's out for a month, then what happens? But in general, I just think he's at that kind of level where Salah was last year, where they're untouchable. You know, they're almost floating across the grass. Everything is going in. I mean, his first goal against Liverpool, the ball skimmed off Konate's head onto his head and went into the corner. It's like, this is just the mood that he's in at the moment. So you always need to be scared about him and of City, but don't let that sort of sway your thinking about what an impressive team Arsenal are. And I think we're in a position now where we've had to learn a lot of hard lessons. We've got a great squad, a very deep squad. And yes, we're missing guys through injury, but I think we've shown that we are capable of picking up points along the way. So it's always nervy. When you're the ones ahead, it's always nervy, because you think, oh, if we drop points here and City win here and blah, 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 maybe mentally it's easier to be the ones chasing because you've got no expectations. But anyone thinking winning a Premier League was going to be easy needs to be, you know, watching another sport, because this is the hardest league to win in the world. So yeah, we're going to have to buckle up, believe in ourselves. And I just feel like winning on Sunday would be the perfect chance to just keep some more momentum going. Because like you said, Sunderland away, a point, it's not even a terrible result. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it just made people feel a bit nervous.
Yeah.
So yeah, just getting that worry out of our sort of subconscious will do everyone a lot of good.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I think as fans, it's natural that we feel that way. And it's natural that we overthink and we overanalyze stuff. I think that I have a confidence now that within the camp, this won't be happening. I feel like they are very focused. They are full of belief. They really do believe that this is their time. And I don't think they're at that point yet where they're kind of looking over their shoulders really nervously. I think they'll be mindful of what City can do, because, of course, as you say, we've kind of been in this situation before and it's not gone the way that we wanted it to. But I really do believe now that within the group, there is that belief and there is that sort of feeling that we can make it happen. Because also, you know, you can say what you like about sort of togetherness and the camaraderie within a team. There will have been a time where Saliba and Gabriel, for instance, would have looked at it and gone, shit, if I get injured or he gets injured, we're in trouble. Now, they might have been great friends with Rob Holding, but the truth is they would have known that there's a drop-off. Surely now they look at Nketiah, they look at Mosquera, who they train with and work with every day, and go, do you know what? No, actually, I have to take care of myself so that I'm more valuable to Arsenal in the longer term, and I can support the greater cause. And I have to trust this guy to come in, and I'm fine with that because they're at that level. And I think that will breed a confidence within the squad. The squad is assembled for this. The squad is built to a really, really high level now. And I don't think that was always the case. In fact, it definitely wasn't always the case. Just on sort of the title race in general, I keep going back to City because I feel like right now they are our biggest challengers. Would you rule Liverpool out completely though at this stage in the season? They've got a lot of problems at the minute. It's not working. There's a lot of questions being asked of them and some of the decisions they've made. But I just feel like you can't sleep on either of these two teams, and you just got to keep going and sort of ensure that any mistakes they make are punished.
Yeah, I honestly, I know this might sound a bit contradictory because of just what I've said about City, but I think Liverpool are done this year. They'll be up there. I think they could always rescue a third place finish or something. But in terms of what I've seen, there were always some question marks about them defensively. Have they signed enough depth at centre back? Konate's been a disaster. Van Dijk is maybe looking his age a little bit. They've had a lot of change at fullback. In midfield, I think they've sort of put too much of a burden on Ryan Gravenberch without another natural six to come in. I know they've got Endo there, but realistically, they're not going to win any leagues with Endo. So, look, there's every chance that Isak could come in, start scoring goals. Wirtz could pick up his form as well. But I'm quite happy to sort of brush Liverpool aside at the moment and just say they've got issues that are too big to sort of fix in the short term. I think they'll definitely be up there, but in terms of running and challenging for the title, I think it's a 2-horse race. So yeah, we just have to wait and see what happens with Liverpool. I don't know. I just sometimes you get a feeling about a team, and even earlier on this season when they were winning games, they didn't look convincing. They needed a lot of late goals. They were shipping goals. They just don't look right. And whereas I look at City now, obviously, they've got a juggernaut scoring up front, but in general, their team does look a lot more balanced than it did earlier on this year. They've got people settling in. So yeah, that City for me are the main rivals, but Liverpool will have a say one way or another, although 100%. They didn't have a say at Etihad, to be honest, because they were useless. So
yeah, they were.
As soon as that first goal went in, I was like, why am I even going to bother watching the rest of this?
Yeah, I don't blame you. Steve says, can't we just look forward to the weekend's game? Why is there so much focus on the season's end? I honestly don't understand. I suppose, Steve, I know that we're going to be bringing you another pod tomorrow where we're going to talk about the lineup. We're going to talk about Mikel Arteta's press conference. I just don't think with so much uncertainty around who's fit and who's not. And hey, maybe that doesn't get cleared up in the press conference. In fact, it probably doesn't. I feel like it won't. But after the press conference, I think we'll be in a better position to start talking about lineups and all the rest of it. So it's not that we're not focusing on the weekend's game. We very often do the whole who starts type pod, sort of sometimes even on the morning of a game, depending on how the schedule falls and how it works out. So listen, big game coming up at the weekend. We're all looking forward to it. It's really, really important. But I do think it's important to look at the broader picture and check in at regular points to understand what that picture looks like. And I think there's no better time really to do that, is there, than an international break. And obviously that's what we're coming out of the back of. Phil, let's wrap up with some predictions. I know they're early predictions. I'll give you mine while I give you an opportunity to think of yours, because I've just put you on the spot. I know. I'm going to go for the famous old 1-0 to the Arsenal. I can't see it being this open and enthralling encounter. I can't see it being like the North London derbies of years gone by. Of course, you never know, because one moment can spark something and it can create a sort of a catalogue of events that you just didn't see coming. But I think 1-0 to the Arsenal is what I'm going for. I don't care what the performance is like. I don't care if people say we stunk out the gaff. I don't care if the ball goes in off of someone's arse. As long as Arsenal win this game, because it's massive that we do, and that we get back to winning ways straight after this international break. How do you see it?
Yeah, entirely fair. Again, 3 points are the most important thing, but obviously I prefer a late heart attack to be avoided, if Arsenal could be so kind as to do that. But yeah, I think we're going to win 2-1. I think Spurs will score. They just have a habit of doing that at Arsenal for some reason, and it's usually a late consolation of some kind, a penalty, a corner or something. But, there's no Harry Kane, no Heung-min Son, so let's see who's going to step up for them this time. I just feel like we are in a good place at the moment, despite the Sunderland draw. I think hopefully we can be boosted by a couple of guys coming back from injury. I think the team always manages to raise itself and raise their levels for games like this at home. There will be no complacency. There will be no going easy. Arteta will be drilling this into them. I'm 100% sure about it. So, And to go back to Steve's point, I am looking forward to the game. It's a nervous energy, but I am excited. I'm always very jealous of the people that can be there. I do miss these big blockbuster games at home. So yeah, 2-1, 3 points. I imagine there'll be some pressure on us because City play on Saturday. So
I was going to ask you about that. Do you think they
Yeah.
win that game, Newcastle away? I know Newcastle have had a really, patchy start to the season, and they've not been what they have sort of portrayed in recent seasons. They're down in 14th in the Premier League. I think they've only won 3 of their 11 games so far this season. But Newcastle away on paper would traditionally be one of those games that you look at and you go, that's where they might slip up. I mean, can you imagine the boost that we would receive going into Sunday's game if they were to fail to take maximum points there? Am I just being sort of really positive and optimistic?
No. It's entirely fair to be looking at this game and thinking, can Newcastle do something? If it was like City at home and Newcastle away, I'd just be like, no, because Newcastle have stunk the place out away from home this year. But there's always a chance with Newcastle at home. I think they've got a point to prove as well because their form's been terrible this year. They obviously lost to Liverpool. They've lost to Arsenal at home. So there's not a huge amount in me that's expecting them to do anything, but I will be watching and I'll be quietly hoping inside that they can do something. I think when a team like Newcastle have a point to prove, they've got the thugs on the pitch, they've got the atmosphere going. You never know. But I don't know. I think City, they just find ways to win these sort of games, do they? So let's see. We've got to do our business. That's my mantra for the year. We can look at everybody else. We can look at Liverpool. We can look at City. We can look at Haaland scoring 3 goals every game. Ultimately, Arsenal have to do their job. So regardless of what happens on Saturday, we need to win. So let's see.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said that now. It means that Haaland is going to score after 3 minutes and Manchester City are going to win by 2-0 without even breaking a sweat. That's probably how it's going to go. Phil, thank you so much for joining me, mate. Really, really appreciate you coming on. I know you're a really busy guy. Let people know where they can follow you, what you're up to, what you've got coming up, and how they can keep across your fantastic work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the Arseblog podcast every now and again. I'm on the Arsenal Vision podcast as well. You can find me a bit more regularly at the Football Vision podcast, where we cover football more generally, topics from across the world. We cover injuries. I chatted with Thomas Grunemark last week, who was the long throwing coach at Liverpool. So he was an interesting guest to have on. So we cover a lot more wider topics on there. And then on socials, if you just type in Phil Costa, I'm there. So I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter. Trying not to be on X as much now because I just copy and paste what I post on Blue Sky, but I'm there if you need me. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Brilliant stuff. Make sure you check Phil out, and I'll leave all these details in the description below. A massive thank you to everybody for joining us live. If you're with us on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Apparently you can do this hype the video thing as well, which we've been talking about in recent weeks. I've been talking about it as if I know how it all works. I don't. But if you go on your phone and you scroll down, you can slide to the right where the comment section is, and you can award the video hype points, which apparently help raise its ranking. So they tell me. Anyway, so go and check that out. Also, if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, don't forget to leave us a review. Those reviews really, really do help. We're not far away from 1,000 reviews on Spotify, and I'd love to get to that point by the end of the year if possible. So if you are a regular listener, which lots of you are, please do leave us those reviews. They really do help. And you can check us out on Patreon. We've got a Patreon bit dropping in a couple of hours time. So check that out as well. Patreon.com/Chronicles of a Gooner. The link is in the description below. And we'll be back, of course, tomorrow on Saturday morning to talk lineups, to talk more concrete predictions, and to try and decipher all the mystical sentences and quotes that we're going to get from Mikel Arteta, I'm sure, later on this afternoon. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us, Phil. All the best. Goodbye, everyone.
Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.